From introduction.
I think students connected in a link, sir. You can start.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. Myself, Uthamaselvan. So as you said, today I'm going to introduce about the Oracle PLSQL, which is the programming language with our Oracle database. And as you said, currently I'm working with database technologies like SQL, PLSQL, Oracle infrastructures. So these are the technologies, my current working professional technologies. So we know very well almost every application we are using today with a database, right? So database can do store the data and it will help us to retrieve the data and analysis. And if we want to do some more efficient manner, we need to go with Oracle PLSQL. So we will look into the Oracle PLSQL. I have shared my screen. Is it visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we know very well what is Oracle database and what database can do. So database is mostly used for the relational database system design and monitor, as well as it will store the data. We can play with the data using some commands, as well as we can use the data for our analytics. There is the database, and we know the SQL. The SQL is we can store, drive, we can play the data using the structured query language that is called SQL. And we can select the data as well as we can insert some new data. We can update existing data based on our logic and requirements, as well as if it is not required, we can delete some data. These all are we can do it in the SQL. And these all are we can do it in the SQL, but we have some limitation in the SQL. So something like uh, limited programming capabilities. If you want to do some operations, database operations like a loop and based on some condition, if we need to do some database operations, we cannot able to do in the SQL. As well as if any error, based on the error type and error category, if you want to handle the error, that is very difficult in the SQL. So these cases, if you want a solution for these problems, we need to go with PLSQL. Right. So the PLSQL stand for procedural language procedural language structured query language, and which is developed by Oracle Corporation. The PLSQL combines with SQL along with some conditional statements, some business logics, some use cases. These all are contained in the PLSQL. Right. So what is the major difference if you are looking into the SQL and PLSQL? SQL, what data you want? We can get the data from the SQL. And based on the data, based on our logic or based on some business logic, if we want to do some operation, we need to go with PLSQL. Right? So if you're looking into the what are the main features of PLSQL, PLSQL always store in some structured way. Right? And as well as we can use the n number of variables in the state. As well, we can control the data based on our requirement into the PLSQL. As we said earlier, if we face some error or if we need to handle some exception, we can do it in the PLSQL. As well, if you are working with some large amount of data, like social media data and enterprise application data, if you are looking the better performance, we need to go with the PLSQL, right? So what is the structure available in the PLSQL? PLSQL mainly, as I said, that is a structured program and which is contained four main parts. One is the declare part, So we are from the technical background, technical students. We know very well how it is the programming work. The same way, the first one is the declare part. We can declare the variables based on our programming unit, based on our requirement. We can set the variables in the declare part. So the next one is begin. Begin in the sense we are going to execute our operational statement here. That is the beginning and exception. When we are execute our operational statements, operational procedures, if you want to handle any exception, so all the program definitely having some exceptional cases, right? The same way, we want to handle some exception, we need to go with exception handling, exception plan. And the last one is end, which means the program has been end, which is the termination area. So bottom of that I have mentioned an image. So this is the same way we need to write all our periods. So this is my sample program. Here we can able to see. There is a simple PLSQL block I have written over there. So if we want to print just welcome to PLSQL, there is a query on the PLSQL block. So right, we can able to see the declare. First one is variable declared. The second one is begin area. Here we are going to start the operation. The next one is L. Here exception is the optional, whether we can use or else we can return the plan. So I skip the exception here because I'm going to print only one variable message. So these cases, I believe we don't want any exception. So these cases I have mentioned, I'm not mentioning the exception. Okay. So as per our previous slide, in the declare part, we can mention the multiple variables and constants and variable in the sense what are the variables. So variable is the stored temporary value. So if you are using some variable into the programming it with any programming, we can use it within the program. We can store the temporary values and data into the variable. So next one is must be declared in the declare section. Variable we need to declare only on the declare section. Right. Some variable if you want to use into the begin operation area, those variables before using into the begin operation area, we need to declare in the declaration section. And commonly data type used for the PLSQL operation is number, backend, date. Yeah, usually, of course, mostly we need to play with numbers, character strings, and data, date, and time, something like that. Mostly we are playing these data types, right? And these variables allow dynamic process, which means I can declare some variable, I can use it for some operation, the same variable, if it is required, I can use it for some other operations. So there is dynamic processing of data. And so we seen the major differences SQL and PLSQL is we can use some controls in the PLSQL. Right? So control in the sense based on the data, I can control some data. See, I have stored all the data in my database, but I need some filtered data only need for some operations. Or else I'm taking all the data from the database table, but based on some scenarios, based on some business logic, I need to do various operations. So these cases, I can use the control statements, right? So even you can able to see in the fundamentals programming what is if else case. These are the statements. I hope you know aware about this. And in the PLSQL, so many objectives available like trigger, functions, procedures, packages. So these are the object. Mostly we will use these four object only. Maximum we will use these four object only at the PLSQL procedure works. Right. So we will look into one by one. So the first one is what is the procedure? So procedure is the stored programming unit. Just assume that we have data in our database. We need to do some operations, right? So these cases, I can write this way also. I can write the programming. PLSQL programming, I can write this way also. This is called anonymous plan. As well as each and every time I want to use. Assume that each and every time I want to use the particular anonymous plan. So these cases, whether I want to store somewhere or else whether I want to store in my own system, local system. So to avoid this, we can store as a procedure in our system, right? So simply if we can say we have some logic based PLSQL, but frequently I'm using this PLSQL. In this case, I can store into the database as a procedure. That is the procedure, right? Function. It's the same like functions. We can say classes also. Same like classes. This is the function in the sense. Some logic I have defined in my database. Some data I want to tag from the database. Frequently I'm tagging. So these cases, each and every time, if I want to write the SQL statement, I want to store somewhere, I want to run every time when I require, I want to run. The same cases, if I want to avoid this, I can store a function into the database. Every time when I require the functions, I can call it, right? So there is a procedure and function. If you look into the main difference between procedures and functions, functions always return a value, must return a value, and procedure may be written or may not be written, right? Like we have stored some data in our database using some IDs. I want to get all the data. So these cases, I can write a function. Whenever it is required, I can call the functions. Right? And trigger, that is the most important part. So while we are doing the DML operations, we are inserting, update, delete the operations we are doing. So these cases, assume that if we are inserting some data, we want to provide some values. We want to provide some automated values, like we are storing some student data. In the student data, while we are creating some student data, just assume that by default system want to create the student identification number. So in these cases, I can go with the triggers, PLSQL triggers. Right. So which is helpful for the automatic additions, automatic deletions, automatic insert. So we can automate some DML operation using the triggers, right? Mostly used for the validation and auditing and automation process. Okay, so just so in a simple word, if you can tell that about the trigger. If you do any DML operation, if you want to do some any other operation, we can automate it using the triggers. Right. And package. So just now I said about procedures and functions, right? So procedure, function, doing the same operation, we can store into the system separately. So these cases, for some operation, some bundle operation, assume that I need to write three or four functions, three or four procedures, or a number of functions, or a number of procedures for a particular operation, right? So these cases, what I have to do, either I can write all the functions and procedures, and I can keep it on the separate folder. The same way, if you want to keep it in our Oracle database, we can go with the PLSQL package. So I can write a package. Into the package, I can store the functions, procedures, like some other database objects, also, like a variables, cursors. So these all are the database object. If you want to store it here, a particular bundled way that is called a package. So, of course, as I said, it will help us to organize the PLSQL code. Okay. So, assume that we have an enterprise large application. Right. Each and every application maybe contains a set of modules. So, these cases for a single model may be required multiple triggers and multiple functions and multiple procedures. So, these cases, what I can do for each and every module, I can create a package. Into that package, what are the functions related to the particular model? What are the procedure related to the same particular model? I can store it into a single package. So this way, I can organize the function and procedures into the package. Functions, procedures, and triggers into the hands-on. I go logged into my Oracle Apex. Okay. So we can do some operations using the PLSQL. I'm creating a student table. Right. I'm going to create a student table. In the students table, I have mentioned the student ID, name, course, department, grade. These are the things I have mentioned. So we are going to do some operations using this student data. So first I am creating the student table. So we can able to see the table is created, right? So here we can able to see these all are the details we can able to mention, right? So the first one we can able to see the student ID and who is created and when it was created. Usually, if you are going into the simple form or directly, if you are entering into the system, you need to provide what is the student ID and who is created and when it was created. Just assume that I want to automate this. So I know these details only, like student name, course, department, email. These are other things only. Why I need to enter the student ID? Why I need to enter the who is created and when? By default, system need to assign this detail. So these cases, as already explained, we can go with the trigger. I need to automate. So when you are doing some DML operations, I want to automate something, I need to go with trigger, right? So I have created the table, right? And so just for my reference, I'm going to create the sequence. Sequence is nothing. Sequence is one of the Oracle database object that it will help us to provide one unique value, right? So just I'm creating a sequence, and now I'm going to create a trigger. So see the trigger I have mentioned. That is the trigger structure. Create or replace triggers. What is the trigger name? And I have mentioned before insert or update on the students table, right? Before do insert or update, I want to do some operation. I have mentioned the what is the operation there, right? So into the begin black, I have mentioned if inserting. If you are inserting the new data, right? If you're inserting the new data for the student ID, by default, system need to assign one sequential number. So these cases, I can mention this query, this code. So each and every time while I'm creating new data, I don't want to enter the student ID. By default, system will assign the student ID. Then as well, assume that we are creating the data from the database, either Apex application or any other application. So these cases, I have a username, I have a password, I'm logged into the system, I'm creating. So again, why I have to mention my name? By default, system need to capture my name and assign it to the database. So these cases, I have mentioned who is creator. And as well, system aware about the time. What is the time which is created? Again, why I have to input as a data? System need to take the time from the database and need to assign it to the compute table. So these cases I have mentioned current direction, right? So you can able to see the structure, create or replace trigger. There is a Oracle object and trigger name as well as when I can do the trigger before insert or update and table name. There is a student table. And for each row, if the inserting operation is done, we need to assign student ID as the sequential ID. As well as while inserting, by default system need to capture my username and inserting time. I have written the trigger, right? Okay. So the trigger is created. Now we are going to insert some student data, right? Here we can able to see the student data. I have mentioned the name, course, department, email, boss. I'm not mentioning the student ID and who is created when it was created, right? So simply I'm going to insert the data. So you can able to see only I am inserting the name, course, department, email, and boss. I'm not inserting the sequence student ID as well as I'm not mentioning the data about who is created when it was created. So simply I run the insert statement on record is inserted. Now just we will select the student table data. Student. Can you see? By default, system is assigned student ID as one, and the rest of other details we have provided, and who is created and when it was created. Right? These three fields assigned by the system. See, I'm going to add one more student data. So, okay, I'm going to select. See the student ID. Student ID is true, and when it was created. You can see the timestamp itself here. What is the date and time, everything you can able to see. Right? So based on my database time, system will assign a system. Right? So the same way, I will insert two more rows also. Insert and then one more insert statement and more student we are going to insert into the system. Right? Select students. See, by default system will assign one unique number as well as detail dimension. Right? Yeah. So that is the process of triggers. So triggers always help us to do some automations. When you are doing some DML operation, we can do some automation using triggers. Right? So now functions. Okay. So as we said, functions always return some values. So based on our business logics, some cases if we want to return the SQL statement again and again, so frequently if we want to write somewhere, so these cases we can write the function. So the function will validate our data. The function will fetch the data from the database. The function will do some operation and finally return the result. Right. So here I have written a function. This function what do? Based on my marks, system will decide the grade. What is the grade? If it is above 90, I have assigned the grade as A. If it is 75 to 90, I assigned the grade as B. If it is 62 to 74, I have assigned as the grade as C. So just I have did some operational work. Here we can able to see some controlling statement is available. So within the function or procedure or package or trigger, within the PLSQL, we can do some control statements. So in the function also, I have used some control statement. So just I will create the trigger. So as I said, in this trigger, I have created only some operations. So this some cases, if I want to check some data, right? So I have stored some data in my database. I want to check, I want to validate this data. So these cases, I can use the cursor into the PLSQL. PLSQL means function procedure triggers. So these are the objects called the PLSQL. I say we can use cursor into the PLSQL. Right? So I'm going to create a function. So the function is created. Now I want to check the function. So I have written a select statement. So within the select statement, I can use this, right? Within the select statement itself, I can use these operations. But just assume that I'm going to use in the multiple ways, multiple pages, multiple areas. So these cases, each and every time I want to write the same SQL statement into the system or else into the database. To avoid this, we have created the function, right? So just I'm selecting the data along with I'm calling the creator function also, right? So simply select. And here we can able to see what is the student name, what is the mark, what is the grade, right? In the SQL statement itself, I don't want to write more queries. I don't want to do more complicated things. So simply write the separate function. I can call into say SQL statement. Not only the SQL statement, we can call into the function, procedures, triggers, packages, everywhere we can call. As well, we don't want to write each and every time separate some fresh anonymous block or fresh query validations. We don't have to write. We can simply write and we can store into a function. And every time when it is required, we can call. That is the function, right? Now we can go with the procedures. So as I said, function and procedure mostly do the similar process. Functions always return a single value, must return a single value, and procedure may be written or may not be written. Okay. So just assume that we are doing some operations. So in the operations, once operation is completed, once operation is done, we need some result. So these cases we can go with the functions. Okay. Then another method. We don't want to return anything. Just simply do the operation and execute the code, execute the process. These cases we can go with the procedure. So I have written a simple procedure. The simple procedure backend do, if we provide some student ID, it will return the student data. It will print the student data. Right? The same way, just assume that you want to send an email to the student, right? Or SMS to the student. Okay, assume that this package is I have written, I have took the data from the database and I have printed. Assume that these all the data I want to send it as an email to students. So these cases, the same procedure, just I need to pass the student ID. System what can do, fetch the data for the particular student, and we can write over SMS email procedure here. So for the SMS or email, we need to do, we need to write some procedures and functions. We need to write some PLSQL plan. So if we want to send email or SMS, just you can write it here. Just we need to provide some student ID. What the procedure can do, simply go into the begin area and select the data for the particular student, and it will send us an email or SMS to the particular student. So now I'm not going to send any SMS or email. Simply, I'm going to print the data, right? Using the procedure. So there is the procedure. I'm going to create a new procedure. We have created the procedure, right? Now we are going to test the procedure or use the procedure. To test or use the procedure, we need to use this command. So already we know we have created student ID 1. So if you want to print this student ID 1 data, simply click, select the black and click the black. So we can able to see the student data. Yes. Student 2. Better. And what are the student 21? Some cases, if it is not available, student is not available. Just I'm entering some wrong ID, right? So I'm going to run. See, student is not found. Now we can recall, as I mentioned in our initial stage, the exception is if you found any error or any exception, we can handle into the exceptional area, exceptional block. So in this PLSQL block, in this procedure, simply I have took the data from the database and print it. If the database is, if the data is not found into the table, what I have to do? So simply I have mentioned student not found into the exception. So that is the major role of exception, right? So many exception is available in the Oracle PLSQL. If no data found, simply we need to use the no data found exception, right? The same way multiple exception is available. In upcoming classes, we can aware about the exception and what are the exception is available, where we can need to use. These all are things in the upcoming classes. We will look into them, right? So that is the way of creating a procedure, executing a procedure, and into the procedure or PLSQL block. That is the format for handling the exception, right? Now we will create one more procedure, right? So I'm going to create a procedure. As I said, in the procedure, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the data from the students table, and for each and every data one by one, I'm going to validate the mark and I'm going to print, right? So here we can see the all the PLSQL commands and all the PLSQL block. First one is the begin. Within the begin, we can use the loop statement. Loop statement is helpful for tracking each and every line from the database. We can execute one by one line. And next one is the conditional statements, control statements. Based on the each and every record, we can validate it using the control statements, right? And finally, another exception part, I have mentioned two exceptions, right? The first one is no data found. If no data found for the particular student into the table, I can mention no data found. Okay, this is the no data found exception. And assume that apart from the no data found, I'm facing some other exception or some other errors. So how I can identify? So these cases we can go with the when others than exception, right? So we'll use when others than exception. If any exception or any error found while I'm executing the PLSQL code, apart from the no data found exception, it will print under this line. So I have mentioned unaccepted error. What is the error code and error details? I can able to see if any exception is occurred, right? So we will create the procedure. Created the procedures and simply run the same way. You can able to see data is reflected. So the same way we can do all the operations here, which is reflecting all the data. And assume that we have mentioned the email ID, right? We have mentioned the email ID in our database. Yes, we do. Okay. In this email, just assume that I want to run a procedure. That procedure want to take all the details for the particular, or else all the details for the particular department. And for each and every student, I want to send the detail as the email. So these cases, we can do some first. So if I want to send an email, here just assume that we are writing send email queries, right? Send mail queries. So before send mail queries, I want to tag all the student details. So we need to initiate the for loop. Same like this, right? Same like this. I want to initiate the for loop and this is my endpoint. So what this statement can do, this parameter will pass to this particular cursor. In this cursor, what we have mentioned, we took the data from the student table and we kept it into the temporary variable. Okay, now we took the data from this cursor, right? So now I want to send an email. So these cases, before send an email, I want to check whether the email ID is exist or not for the particular student. So add one more condition is if r dot email is not null. We know very well if there is no email ID, we cannot able to send an email to the particular student. So these cases, what we can do, we can add some control statement on here. So within the ended block, we can write our send email. Okay. So what the procedure can do, simply take the data from the particular cursor, right? Then one by one, we will pass into the particular block. And within the block, we have written one more condition as if email is not null, then only system is send email to the particular student. Okay, here we can add one more option. If else, we can print as email not found for and concatenate r dot what is student name. So these cases, the if condition execute two process. One is if the email is found, if the email is available, system will send the email to the particular student. If the email is not available for the particular student, system will print this person, print this variable. So easily end of the procedure execution, we can identify any student without email ID or not, right? That is another procedure. Okay, now come to the functions. So come to the packages, right? So if you are aware about packages, it's very simple. As I said, if you bundle into the functions, if you bundle the functions or procedure into a folder, that is called the package, right? So as I said, I have created one function, I have created one procedure, but in these cases, I want to combine into one folder or module that is called a package. So student package, I have created a student package. So under the student package, I can store all the data under the student package. Data in the sense I can store all the functions and procedure into the student package. So easily I can identify in organized way, I can manage my code. So these all are the facilities provided by the Oracle PLSQL package. So if you want to create a package, that is two ways we need to do. One is the package specification. So specification in the sense we know aware about the spec, the same way specification spec. So what are the details contained? Just we need to provide the minimum introduction about the package. Then package body. So under the package body, we need to define our operation for each and every function and procedure. Right? So here I have created a package. My package name is student package, and I have created the package, and I'm going to create the package body. So in the create specification, just I have mentioned the what is the function name, what is the parameter I need to pass, or else what is the parameter I will get it from the functions. Everything I can able to see in the package specification, and under the package body I can do the entire operations. So under the package body, this is the function. The function is completed here, and again I have written a procedure. The procedure is function completed here, and entirely packaged. I have packaged into a package, and I'm going to create a package here. Yes. In future, assume that in future I'm going to add some more functions or some more procedure. Simply I can add it here. Get student details, student you may assume that I'm going to write a function, right? Procedure or function, whatever it is. And as well in the body, here also I need to mention the body details. What is the operation I'm going to do? Everything I need to mention onto the package body. So we have created package body also. If you want to run, simply you need to call the student package and the function name. So in the function, we need to write some parameter, we need to print some parameter also, right? So mostly, if you are doing some PLSQL code, definitely we need to do all the PLSQL code in organized way. So if you want to do the PLSQL code in organized way, definitely we need to go with the package, right? So as I mentioned, the function procedure, whenever it is required, we can use. If you mention it into an organized way, it will helpful for our easy identification. Just assume that we have created one software included student and staffs, or else student and library related. So these cases, in a single software, we are going to maintain multiple models. So for each and every model, you can create a package, right? So once created for each and every model as a single package, finally, if you want to use some package into another one model, simply you can call. We want to write the query for the particular another one model also. Right? I have mentioned the student package. Assume that another one module is lecturer about the staff details. I have mentioned. For the lecturer, the staff details, I need to create one more package. So we have two packages. Say these two packages, some cases based on our business logic, based on our requirement. Into the student package, may be required to get the lecturer or staff data. So these cases, simply we can call the lecturer or staff data into the student package, right? So as I mentioned, what it will helpful as well as the modularity, security, performance that will helpful for the mostly it will helpful for the performance. We don't want to write again and again. We can write in a packaged way, and mostly it will helpful for the enterprise applications, large data handling applications, right? And so you know very well about the SQL, and I hope you aware about the PL/SQL now. So what is the major difference? The SQL is the query language. PL/SQL is a procedural language. SQL mostly we can use it for the data operations, and PL/SQL based on the data we can use it for the business operations, business logics, right? And usually variables they will not support under the SQL. PL/SQL it will support the variables, controlling statements like if else, controlling statements we can use, and loop. If you want to take a multiple data from a cursor, we can use the loops, and as well the error handling based on the multiple type of errors handling, multiple type of exceptions. We can handle the error in the PL/SQL. We cannot able to do in the SQL. And programs. We can use the procedures, functions, triggers into the PL/SQL. We cannot able to do. As well, the main feature is SQL. If you write somewhere, if you do it for some operations, you need to store somewhere into our local system or else somewhere else. But in the PL/SQL, if you write any SQL code or any business logic operations code, you can store it as a procedures, functions, attribute, right? So finally, the takeaway is PL/SQL extend the SQL with the programming capability, which means SQL extended version is the PL/SQL, and PL/SQL provide the better control and automation the database. So every time we don't want to work as a programmer, we don't want to execute the queries every time. Simply we can write and store, and we can do some automation in the PL/SQL, mostly used in the enterprise and large applications. So definitely, of course, we are going to become a database handlers, a technical person. Definitely, we need to aware about the PL/SQL process, right? So if you have any queries, you can ask me now. Friends, if you have any queries or any clarification of it is required, you can ask me now. As well, if you have any queries in future about the SQL, PL/SQL, you can contact me on through the LinkedIn. And if it is required, I will post this whatever we created the package functions. These all are the queries within 2 or 3 days. I will post it my uh, blog. You can able to find if it is required just for your reference or learning purpose. I will post it in the blog. You can read it. I hope everyone is clear about the understanding of the PL skill process. So as I said, if you have any queries, you can come to my LinkedIn. You can chat. As well as you can read the blog, get about technical. Dear team, anything if you want to ask, can definitely continue. So I hope we can wrap up the session. Okay, thank you, friends. Thank you all, and wish you all the best for the successful life. Thank you all. Talk to you. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.